I think we're gonna have to think about that a little bit more.
Yeah,
or are you ready to tackle that question?
That's gonna. I don't know. I mean, we can, but it's gonna be a shambled answer. Or we can sit down because I have to go on record here and say this: that I've done a few podcasts. This might be the first question that I've spent about a week thinking about. Like,
I think we have to do it.
You can ask Jazzy. Like, I was aggressive with this question.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Bro and Pro podcast, where we hope to help you reach your full potential, whether that be inside or outside the gym. I'm your main host, Jeremy So, self-proclaimed gym bro, and today I'm shared with the well-known, well-respected coach of WA, Richard Collins from the Physique Code, co-owner of the Physique Code, and he's one of the best coaches, I would say, in WA.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yes. And so today we are back with episode 2 of the podcast because Richard has been on my first one. We did more of an introduction back then, did talk about coaching and clients and stuff like that. But today we are going to talk about a few more in-depth topics and questions. Are you ready for this?
Can't wait. Let's do it.
So we're going to start things off, right? So the first question I have for you, is it the client or the coach's ability that determines results?
I think it's both, and I think it's also very context dependent. So I think if you're working with a performance-based athlete, so just to pull it back a little bit, we can have two different types of coaching. So we can have developmental coaching and performance coaching. So developmental coaching is when we need to teach skills, habits, and things like that. And performance coaching is sort of managing an athlete that already has everything already built up. So I think you probably, a coach has a lot more to do with development coaching because we're having to teach and build new habits and build new skills and things like that. Performance coaching is going to be more about the skills are already elite and we're just trying to manage them and, make sure we're getting the timing right, whether if it's a bodybuilding or any type of sport or, just a general population person that already has all their skills and habits down. We're more so going to be managing their diet, making sure that they're getting lean enough, make sure that their training is, they're recovering from their training loads, intensities, and all that are pretty spot on. So to me, I think the coach does play a big role in both of those, but I think, depending on the client, they're going to be different. So I think maybe it's, for me, I feel like I have more of we have more about their results when they're developing because we're teaching them so many new things and we're keeping, rather than when we're just managing them. So I think, it is both, but I think it's both on different levels. So I think, at a top elite level athlete, the effort and all that stuff should already be there, and we're just sort of guiding. And then, it does feel, because we don't have to teach as much and be quite as hands-on. I think, it feels like the athlete's going to be doing a lot more of the work, and we're sort of just in the background, just sort of guiding. But then when you're doing development coaching, I think it feels a lot more like it's both the coach's responsibility, or both the coach and the athlete both getting the results together, because the coach has to have a much, much, much bigger input in their what they're doing and how they're learning and whatnot. So I think it is context dependent on the athlete, and I think in both situations that both of them play a big role. But I think definitely from a coach's perspective, it does feel a little bit more like the athlete does the majority of the work when you're dealing with more elite athletes compared to sort of general population people that are just sort of starting their health and fitness journey.
It's very interesting. I think when you separate it in that way and combine the two, it makes a lot of sense. Development coaching would be like, helping someone build those habits and behaviors, like helping a client do that, but it requires them to actually be transparent and talk to you. It's like a relationship, right? Yeah. You kind of have to build that relationship with each other. Like, what are you actually doing? How do we find something that works for you, that helps you, bridge that gap, as you said in the first episode. I've been using that a lot. I was like, it makes a lot of sense now. And also then you got performance coaching, which is completely like someone who's a bit more elite athlete, and you're really fine tuning their training, like the quality of training. When you put it that way, it's so interesting. I love these podcasts, especially when I do it with you, because I do learn a lot. And I'm like, whoa, this is very interesting, because I could never really separate the two. But combining personal with development coaching, and then you got like performance coaching, I was like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. Because I feel like when I look at the bigger picture of things, like when I help Gen Pop clients, even competitors, it does feel like there's a lot of different areas. But then you've literally just segregated the two different areas and be like, that's exactly what we do. It sounds like a lot now when you combined it. And so would you combine both of them for every individual, or is it like just dependent on the individual client skill level?
Yeah, I mean, there's going to be overlap always. I don't think you can 100% say this person is completely performance-based or this person is completely development-based, because even when we're trying to develop them, we're still trying to improve their performance, right? We just have to maybe focus on different things. So in development coaching, we're actually getting better performance by building habits that work with their lifestyle and trying to learn, what we can do to make it sustainable or whatever the goal is. And then in performance, you generally have to have all that stuff figured out. So, it's going to be, okay, we know all these things. If it's a client that's already quite experienced, they may come in and they're already doing everything they need to do. All they need to do is just be guided a little bit. Whereas, some people come in and it's the complete opposite, where they want the end result, but they don't have any of their, basic habits or understandings of nutrition or training or anything like that. So we sort of have to develop the person to the point that, they can sustainably do the basics, and then we can sort of look at guiding the ship as well. So like whenever I coach general population people, the goal is always to try to get them to, be in the realm of coaching them for performance, where we just have to sort of overlook and manage and kind of do a summary sort of thing. Whereas, so when they first come in, we want to look at it and go, okay, well, we know we need to build your habits around lifestyle, sleep, nutrition, stress, all these sort of things. And that's all the development coaching. And then once we do that, to a point where they're sustainable on it, then we can sort of look at potentially performance coaching and things like that. But they're always going to overlap. Like the goal is always going to be to perform better, to get closer to their goal. So I think it's just that's the outcome goal. And I think when we're just trying to work out the best way to coach them, I think it's a little bit easier sometimes just to kind of separate them into those 2 points, and then it sort of reinstates what you're actually trying to do with the client to get them to that end result.
No, I love it. Like I said, now I'm going to have to start implementing that, because I think, did you just create the terms yourself, or you heard it from somewhere?
Oh, this is going to be terrible because I can't actually remember.
Okay.
Yeah, I will.
We can't give them a plug.
When I'm going to go back and look it up, and when I do, I'll make sure I give them credit for that. So there was a book that I was reading on coaching that broke it down like that. So
it's amazing.
It was actually a sports coaching book that broke it down like that. But I thought it was really applicable in personal training. I think the book was more going to be about like coaching juniors in basketball and working on developing their skills. And then, when they're in professional levels, it's going to be more about, managing personalities so that you can bring out the best of them and things like that. Rather, they don't need to learn how to dribble a basketball anymore, because they're already, at an elite level. You need to work out how to manage the players together to, get the most out of the entire team. So that was performance coaching, and then development coaching was, teaching them how to pass or dribble or shoot or things like that. So I kind of just,
applied it.
Yeah, I really liked that. And I kind of just used it through personal training. And, it's not 100% perfect, but it definitely is something that I think can be applied and can be useful.
That does. I don't know if I did ask you this question in the last podcast, but now that you've brought it up, and now I'm just bringing extra questions. I know we have quite a list of questions, but I think as we discuss more things, I want to dig in like a little bit deeper. And I guess, we there's a lot of coaches now out there. Do you think that a lot of coaches are losing exactly what you just said, like that development coaching as well as performance coaching? Are we losing like that aspect of what coaching truly is. Like, so now we got online coaches, you know, a lot of PTs, new PTs coming out there, you know, that are being online coach straight off the bat. I think we may have talked a little bit about PT and online coaching, but this kind of feels like this applies a little bit to like the coaching ability of a coach now. That's more than just, here's a program, here's a nutrition plan. Here, follow this. Cool.
Yeah, I think that works. That method works really well if you have buy-in as a coach and people have trust in you that they're going to follow what you do religiously. And it also works with performance-based athletes. But I think sometimes maybe with online training, we can try to use the performance methodologies that aren't bad by any means, but then try to apply them to people that need development work. And maybe they find things a little bit tougher to do that because they don't have to give them calories, macros in a program when maybe their lifestyle doesn't allow them to do things or whatnot. And it could be, I think it probably would be the case in some cases. But I also, I happen to know tons and tons of online coaches that are able to do development coaching online. Amazing. So, and they have different strategies and different things to use. So I definitely think it's there, but I always think, even with any industry that you're in, there's going to be people that do it with minimal effort, and then people that go over the top. And I think, the same thing can happen in person as well. I think there's a lot of people that it probably happens with not just online, but it happens with in-person training too. But yeah, I think, I don't think it's hard to just label it down and say, oh, this is what's happening. And because I think it's, it probably does happen. And there's also a lot of great coaches that don't do, that do everything absolutely amazingly online. So, but yeah, I don't know. I think it's probably less to do with online and more to do with coaching in general.
Very interesting. Sorry, I just threw a random question in there. I definitely feel like people do lose that meaning of being a coach. And I think it's just about, we're here to help our client to the best of our ability within your scope of what you know. And I think if you do that, then that's more than enough sometimes, like people are going to see that.
Yeah. Absolutely. That's all anyone can ask, right?
Yeah.
You do the best job that you know how to do. Make sure you help your client any way possible that you know how to do. And you can't ask any coach to do anything more than that.
Yeah. But the client's just got to buy in and believe that you're going to help them bridge that gap or get from point A to point B.
But I mean, you can, when you're helping clients buy in, that also comes with communication. That also comes with, a lot of the time people say, it's like, well, they've got previous results and things like that. And that's fantastic. But at the same time, like even newer coaches that don't have that, just because they haven't been in the industry long enough, great communication, actually understanding, listening, which I think is a very, very underrated thing, being empathetic, and all of those sort of things create really good buy-in too, which I mean, you can do in person and you can do online as well. So I think, if coaches are able to do that to the best of their ability, then you could never ask a coach to do anything else.
Yeah, that's really good. Thank you for that tip. That was a very good tip. So we got the next question. What determines a great client?
What determines a great client?
Yeah.
We could go down so many paths with this.
Oh, we're going to go down all the paths today. Yeah, let's do it. Let's just enjoy it.
So I think as a baseline, somebody that is willing to listen and be coachable. I think that's also the onus of the coach as well, though. So I can't say it's just, you can't expect a lot of clients to sometimes just come in and just be like, yep, I'll do exactly whatever you say, which is amazing if it happens, but it doesn't always happen. And sometimes, again, being coachable and being bought in is going to be the result of them feeling like you care and them feeling like you're giving them, like that you want them to succeed just as much as they do. So again, I think being coachable is really, really important. Having open communication, I think, is quite important. Asking questions.
Asking questions is key.
Oh my God.
I'm just like, ask questions.
Yeah. If you have a coach right now and you're listening to this, you think you don't want to bother them about asking them a question, ask. Love it. Absolutely love it. Because I know from personally, and you might be the same as this, but clients that ask me a ton of questions, to me, seems like they care more. And
100%.
I would much rather have somebody say, sorry to annoy you, I have another question. I would love that over somebody that I just, I give them their stuff and they're like, yeah, cool, see you later.
I'll just do the plan. And that's fine to some extent.
Yeah.
But like, you're not going to truly, it's like, when you go into the classroom, you got someone in the front of the class always asking questions. They are going to tend to do better than the ones that don't ask questions.
I was one of the ones at the back and I didn't do as well.
But now you're doing really well. So
you definitely be at the front of the class.
Be in the front of the class. Yes. That's important.
Be the teacher's pet.
Yes.
But yeah, so I think, those are really important. And I think, outside of that, 10 years ago, I probably would have said skill level and, adherence and all these things. But, nowadays I sort of look at it and I think that onus is just as much on the coach as it is on the athlete. Like you can't, you got to give the client reason to buy in. You know what I mean? Like you can't just say, be the drill sergeant, authoritative person and say like, this is what you're going to do. If you don't do it, then you're a bad client. You have to make sure that you're able to build really good, rapport with the client and things like that. And then, once you do that, if they're, bought in, they're coachable, they ask questions, they want to learn, they're all the principles that you need for an amazing client, regardless of whether they're an elite athlete or they've never been to the gym before. When people are able to do that, you generally see them get really, really good results over the short and the long term.
Yeah. And I think another thing is like that relationship as well. Really like the relationship between a coach and client is super important. It's like, the saying goes like, not every client is for every coach. And it's just about finding someone that you really mesh with and connect with, that you're like, I can listen to this person. He's got the right mindset of how I look at things, and you just agree to some extent, and he pushes me enough to help me get to that next level as well. I think that relationship factor is something that I try to work on with my clients. I have a good relationship with them because they're more easier to trust in what you say, right?
Yeah, absolutely. 100% agree. 100% agree. And like you'll see, it happens in bodybuilding a bit is where, an athlete might be, I've seen athletes win pro cards, national titles, and then the next season end up with a different coach. And it's like, obviously the result wasn't the issue there because they couldn't have gone any better. But, sometimes it might be communication issues. It might be, it could be any one of those things. It could be, I didn't click with them. And that's okay. As long as, like you said, there's a coach for everybody.
Yeah.
I really do like that phrase as well, because, you can do an amazing job, but if the person and you don't necessarily get on great, maybe it's not the best fit, and somebody else can do the exact same work, but they get on really well with the client. Yeah. And then, they end up getting even better. And that's amazing as well. Even if you're the coach that's like, you did your best job with them and they still got results, but they went somewhere else and that happened, then, you got to be happy for the client, because, you want to see them progress as much as they possibly can. So I think that's really important.
Yeah. So, that's something I kind of, I really, that's something I learned as I kept working with different clients. I'm like, I got to be prepared, because like, it's one of those things, you can teach them as much as you could do everything right. Someone else could give them the exact, as you said, give them the exact same program. And all of a sudden they just like, I just like this guy better. They're just going to execute even better than that. And you just kind of like, well, I guess that's the better fit for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think one more thing I want to add is also that I believe what determines a great client is the long-term goals, the long-term vision of what they have and what they want to actually achieve. Because like if someone doesn't do well in their first show, as long as they keep going at it and they keep going the way they are, they live the lifestyle, even though it may not be 100% all the time, I think they're going to go further. Like having that long-term vision is something that, I try to have even new clients that I have, like try to focus on, like, it's like, what is your end goal? Like if there is an end goal, like who do you want to be 1 year from now? Instead of looking at like the three months, 6 months, it's like, who do you want to actually be 1 year from now and longer than that? And I think that's helps. Well, that's how I can determine partly like if a client's going to be, see that vision and they want to change their life, or they want to just do this just for a period of time and then that's it. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, some clients, that's all they want to do when they.
That's true.
If they come in and they're up front, they say, I just want to do 12 weeks and I want to learn as much as I can, or kickstart off to get motivated and then learn how to continue. That's fantastic as well. But yeah, it's always nice when a client comes in with their, realistic expectations of how long things are going to take and whatnot. And, when you chat about it, they're okay to, they understand that it's going to take probably more time than what they think. And, that also, definitely makes a good client because it makes it much easier.
They have the vision, right? Exactly. And it's not like quick results and then see you later kind of thing.
Yeah, 100%. I agree with that 100%.
Yeah, perfect. So the next question, we got the really good one, which is skipping. So we're going to save that towards the end. Do you believe genetics, lifestyle, and mindset are major determining factors in someone's results?
Yes.
Straight
out. Yes. Those are the three main things, right? Yeah. So genetics, I kind of look at like your genetics is going to load the gun and your environment pulls the trigger, right? So that's a very famous quote. I didn't make that up. I said, but that's a very famous quote.
I like the quotes. Keep it covered.
But, absolutely. I think you can take some of the hardest working athletes and that maybe aren't as genetically gifted. And you can take somebody that works, but is very genetically gifted. And more often than not, the floor is always going to be more open for the person that's genetically gifted, and the ceiling is always going to be higher. So you're always going to have more room to grow there. So I think genetics absolutely plays a massive role in progressions. And if we're talking in not just bodybuilding, but I'll come back and use basketball again.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're 6'11" versus 5'8", I know who I'm picking.
Can I ask though, who is the shortest player in the NBA? What is the shortest? I tried to talk to someone else about this, and I'm like, what is it? It wouldn't be that. It's how short would it be? Like 5'10"
right now?
Yeah, right now.
I'm not sure. I think Muggsy Bogues was the shortest player that ever played.
And how tall was he?
He might have been 5'4".
Okay, that's.
But this is a one-off crazy.
Like, can do dunks on 5'4"?
He could dunk, yeah.
Oh,
yeah, he could.
Damn, that's some good hops.
Yeah, he could dunk. Yeah,
yeah.
He could dunk. Yeah. But I mean, like, if you're that height and you're playing in the NBA, like, you're an outlier. And you're gonna be really fucking good skill wise and athletically. Like you've got some sort of
something there.
You've got some gift that is gonna be crazy to be able to play.
Yeah.
But I mean, same sort of thing coming back to it. Like if you're in bikini, for example, right, and your rib structure and hip structure is quite straight up and down, you can get as lean as you want, you can get as muscular as you want. You may struggle against somebody who has a wider clavicles, wider hips, and smaller sort of rib cage where they can create that hourglass shape a little bit easier. So you're always going to be, I guess, fighting an uphill battle. And I'm never going to sit here and say you can't do it, but it does. It will play a massive part 100%. In your results, especially in sport. But in saying that, before I'm just shitting on bad genetics, I feel bad there. I'm like, you don't have a chance.
I think it's a topic that is the harsh truth, because when I started competing back then, I always knew my genetics weren't the best. All right, I don't have big clavicles and stuff.
You got pretty good genetics.
I don't, compared to some of these guys, I've seen the guys who are very wide, just like as you said, clavicles. Men's physique is very much small waist, big shoulders, and some of these guys just stand there. I was like, man, they're so wide. I built my physique to get there, but I knew that the genetic factor. I used to believe that, I'll just outwork the genetics. I'll outwork them. I'll do whatever it takes. And then at some point, once I started coaching, I started realizing genetics does play a role. Like as the harsh truth of bodybuilding, if you're talking about bodybuilding or any sport, it's gonna come down to genetics, and
100%.
Yeah, it's the harsh truth, and I'm not gonna lie and say that you can't outwork it. And you don't get me wrong, you can push every other factor perfectly, and I'm sure you're probably going to go into that soon. But you can push every other factor perfectly, and you probably can do really well and go pretty far. Don't get me wrong. You might turn pro, and you might be competing on the pro level. But then when it comes down to the top 10 in the world, possibly, that's when you're going to be like, crud, maybe these guys are like, they've done everything as what else I have, and genetics is the one thing,
And I think when you get to the top levels in the world of whatever discipline you're doing, you need to be structurally an outlier.
Yep.
You also need to have a mindset and an attitude and a level of intensity and effort that is also an outlier. So I think, if somebody has great genetics, but they really don't apply themselves, they're beatable by somebody.
100%.
You can outwork, but when we are talking now going up into the top levels, I think, there is going to be a point, especially like genetics, you can't, because that's like mindset and things like that. You can change, right? That's trainable. You can't train genetics. So again, you're going to get to those points and it's like, you could be the best basketball player in the world, but bro, you're 5'6", right? And it's like, there's other guys that are going to be doing everything that you're doing that are 6'4" and 6'5", and you're just going to struggle. And that is what it is. And it doesn't mean you can't get better. And it doesn't mean, I guess that's why it comes down to that whole comparison is, what is it? The comparison is
the thief of joy.
Yeah. Something like that, where it's like, the minute you're like, well, I don't look like this person. It's like, yeah, but you're completely different to them. And doesn't mean you can't get better. Yep. This is general population transformations. This is bodybuilding. This is, all sorts of things like that, right? And it's like, those things aren't in your control. So just don't focus on them. And I'll go off on a little tangent here, but this is something that I sort of push towards clients quite a lot that I had learned from one of the sports psychologists that I did some work with. And just listing things that you can control and then giving them 100%. And then listing things that you can't control and then just not worrying about it, right? Because if you control every controllable factor at 100%, you can be proud of what you do, right?
Yep.
First, second, third, fifth. If you do everything you can possibly do to be as good as humanly possible, then you have to be proud of yourself and you have to be proud of the outcome, because everything else, who turns up on the day, you can't control that. You can't control,
especially because bodybuilding is subjective. We were talking about bodybuilding,
bro.
It could be any sport.
Judging, right?
Yeah.
We can look at judging. We can look at, just the standard of competition that comes up. All those things, right? It's like who the height classes, who ends up in what height class, right?
Oh yes,
so
huge thing, and that could be a luck game. You just be like,
it is, right? So it's like these things you just can't worry about. So this will probably this does tie a lot into the mindset section, but you just have to focus on things that you can control and do them at 100%, and then you can be proud of whatever result you get. And no genetics, nothing that's uncontrollable can be taken away from that. So I think that's like something that's I've been trying to sort of drill into clients quite a lot, is just controlling the controllable factors of what you can do, and then as long as you do those to 100%, be proud of whatever the outcome is, because you can't control that.
Love that. And I love when clients realize that themselves, especially when they are competing in whatever sport they do. Part in the bodybuilding industry, I guess it's like, you can't control who stands up with you on the next day. All you can do is just do the best you can be. And, if you're in it for the long game, then this is just a stepping stone. It's your one step towards what you're trying to do. Just do it better every single time, and I guarantee you're going to get better. It's just a time game. It's like, we did talk a little bit about how, like, you could have a client one season and then they could win, and then they go off to another coach. And it's like the coach party, honestly, they just had more time training and they just improved from that. It might not be any new techniques. It might not be anything new stimulus. It might be a new stimulus, but I do believe that to some extent it's just a time game. If you just keep training the way you are, you're going to make improvements. And if you keep improving in those quality of training sessions and stuff, you get better,
Absolutely. So you just control everything that you can control, and, you progress, and, sometimes it's harder to do, easier said than done, but, try to
Social media has ruined us.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Bro. It's so bad. It's
Yeah.
so bad. Sometimes I gotta like just take myself out of it.
Yes. It's like, it's crazy because people think we spend all our time, but I have a lot of breaks. I don't sit on there as much as, like, I try to sit on there as little as I can.
Yeah.
Maybe if I'm talking to friends or family or like clients, that's about it. But I try not to browse it too much. Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. And again, right, like with bodybuilding or with transformations or just comparing themselves to other people, and it's like you're not them. You know, so you can't, you know, some people, yes, some people are going to get results easier than you. Some people are going to do half as much as you and look how you want to look. And, you know, it is what it is. And the minute you start comparing yourselves to those people, you've lost, right? Because you can't beat something that you can't control.
Yes.
Sort of thing. You know, so again, coming back to it is you just focus on what you can control and improve, and you know, you get to where you get to, right? And when you do everything to the best of your ability, and you can be proud of what you do. So I think, you know, swinging it all the way back to that question is all of that stuff is, you know, I think, what was it? Mindset, genetics.
It was genetics, mindset, and lifestyle.
And lifestyle, right? So all three of those things. So lifestyle to me is like your daily habits. So like, you know, 100%. You can control those things. So if you take those to the best of your ability and you do, you know, you work out what you need to do in your life to achieve the goal that you want to achieve, and you build your lifestyle around doing that.
Yeah.
And then you set up a good mindset where you're controlling everything that you can control. You know, those are trainable things you can do to improve, and they're definitely going to make progress better, make progress potentially faster, and hopefully make it more efficient. Genetics you can't really do a ton about, but better genetics is always going to be, you know, if you're running a 100-meter race, you're probably going to start, you know, you could start anywhere from 10 to 40 meters in front of other people, but you can't control that. So it is what it is. Doesn't mean you can't get amazing results. And yeah, I think those three things, along with effort, are the only four things you can do to get results. Like I think outside of those four, I would say those are the four main things that you have to do to be able to actually achieve, regardless if it's in the gym or anything or whatever it is, right? Like
anything,
you do those things well, and you'll be more successful than if you don't. So yeah, I do think those are three very, very large, you know, factors in success, especially in body composition.
And business, everything. Yeah. It's a whole thing. Yeah, it's the four biggest things. 100%. Sweet. So that was a very good question. So, can you overcome bad genetics? I think I did ask that. We did talk about that a little bit. I guess we did kind of touch on it a little bit. We did talk about how you can improve your lifestyle and if you focus on the other areas that you can improve on. But can you overcome bad genetics when it comes to competing?
I would break that down a little bit and say you can't change genetics. So in a way, no. However, we're also talking about what are we defining as overcoming? Because for me, it's like improving yourself to be as close to the criteria as you can and be the best athlete in whichever division you choose. Yes, 100%. Absolutely, no question about it, and every person can pretty much do that until for as long as they want to in bodybuilding. So I do think that you can in that regard, but I also think that, like we said earlier, if somebody with superior genetics does exactly the same as that, due to criteria of a bodybuilding show, you may not beat that person. So again, I think, you know, it depends on how we want to frame that question. But I think, you know, in terms of can you improve and can you get yourself better and better season after season and grow more muscle and build the shape that you want to build to, absolutely 100% yes, I think you can. And then again, like if we're defining overcoming by going pro or winning a show or winning the Olympia, you know, depends. Like, are we going to win a show? Well, depends on who turns up, right? Depends on the subjectivity of the judging. Depends on a bunch of other things, right, that are outside of our control. So you can, because you could have a show where maybe you aren't the most genetically gifted. You've worked really hard. You've improved, and the standard's not quite as high, and you come out and win the show, right? You bring that exact same physique, and it's a couple people come out there that are potentially pro-worthy athletes, and you don't win the show. Does that mean you don't overcome them?
Yeah, that's a very good.
So so like it's for me, it's like, this is why I also, coming back to it, is like controlling controllables. It's like, if we can get you better and you can improve every single season, to me, that's overcoming genetics. You might not go pro, but it's still overcoming genetics. So I would say yes, you can, but that's the more in-depth answer.
No, I love that answer because, like you said, you like to rebut what you just said. It'd be like, oh, it's going back and forth. Yeah. And I think that's fair to say, because I feel like this industry should be like that. I think coaches need to kind of think in some way, like, we got to be able to also go against what we say, because it's just dependent on who we talk to, like what type of client we're talking to, and what their end goal is, or what the vision is, or who they want to be. We have to be able to understand their point of view in every aspect, every light, and be like, actually, no, I could go against what I say and say this. And
that's why the industry has got so much fuckery in it, is because like nothing is black and white, right? Everybody talks like it's black and white, but everything is so contextual. Everything is in the gray. So
there's so many things out there, honestly. As we were talking about before, you can literally go, you just post something and someone else is gonna post about that, and it just ends up being a post war of just like going back and forth, and there's no black and white. There really isn't. Like, I just like to be open about everything and just look at everything as a whole and be like, okay, well, how does this apply? Like, if I want to talk to a client, like, and different things apply to every client. Sometimes you have to phrase it a certain way instead of saying it one way so they understand it, But yeah, it's very interesting. So
right. Yeah, 100%. I 100% agree with that. So, I don't know. I think when we do look at it, everything's going to be so contextual that you just kind of go, well, could be this, could be that, Then I think on one side and be like, well, this I think is right. Yeah, but for that person, that's completely wrong, and this is right. And, you got to sort of work out who the fuck are we talking about? Who are we talking to, right? Like, we need to define a few things here, like we just sort of said with that question. It's like, can you overcome genetics? And it's like,
it depends on who you're talking to.
You're just trying to improve yourself and to get to your criteria, 100%.
Yeah.
Right? Are you trying to win the Olympia? Maybe not. Right? Yeah. So again, it's always, everything's in the gray area.
Yeah, in the gray area. We got to think in the gray area. And I think that's one thing I always just focus on. I'll admit that what I say now might change in 2-3 years' time.
I change it in like 2 weeks.
Yeah, 2 weeks. Probably a lot faster for you. I'm a bit slower.
Depends on the day what answer you're going to get from me. Yeah.
Actually, no, I do feel like that sometimes. It just kind of goes through a phase. I might be like, oh, I believe this for a little bit, and then I'll just change it up when I hear something completely different. Okay, sweet. So we got another question here. Okay, we talked about what determines a great client, but how do you become a top tier client?
How do you become a top tier?
How do you become a top tier client?
Do you want the gray area answer again? Are we gonna have to?
Oh, I reckon you could do black and white, but
black and white? Yeah, nothing but black and white. I mean, is this from a coach's perspective?
I guess like if you're looking at as a client trying to improve and try to be a top tier client to whoever they're working with, or even a coach's perspective, obviously you got both perspectives there. So I think like it'll be good to hear it. So talking a client's point of view, if they want to know, and a coach's perspective, how do we mold someone to be a top tier client? Is it possible to?
Yeah. So what I'll look at it from myself, because I think you're going to get a different answer from every single coach on this. But for me, it's again similar sort of things that we were talking about before, right? Where we go, okay, they ask questions, they want to learn, they buy in, and again, some of the onus again on that is on the coach and communication and things like that. They're transparent, like you said, and just working hard. Always wanting to be better and always trying to find ways to improve, not necessarily just be a yes man, but somebody that, wants to know the whys of why they're doing things, somebody that, and then once they understand or become more bought in. And, I think a really good point that you brought up before is having realistic expectations, which again, I also think is a little bit on the coach too. But yeah, we're having realistic expectations of what they want to achieve, how long it's going to take, what it's going to take to do. And then, just being able to not just look at before and after photos and say, I don't look like that yet, I'm not happy, but, look at the process over the outcome sort of thing. And, understand that you got to work through the process to get to the outcome. And that's where all of your work, in the trenches sort of stuff should be. And I think, when an athlete when a client ticks all those boxes, they're going to be a top tier client. That's from my personal experience. You're probably going to get some coaches, they're going to say win. Just win. If you win a bodybuilding show, you're a top tier client.
No, I didn't even think of that. You just threw it out there. I'm a bit shocked because I'm just like, I know you just said that as like, obviously that's what other coaches would want. And I'm like, wait, what?
True. It's true though.
It can't be like that. That's not determining factor. Like that shouldn't be.
Like you can look at that, right, and say like, if somebody wins, it's good for business.
Right? I guess so. Yeah.
Top tier client. Like it's those sort of things are, you might get that answer from someone.
Interesting. Right? Very interesting. Yeah.
But I think it's, for me, from an actual client.
You just like rocked my boat. I wasn't ready for that one. When you like said that, I was just like, wait, what?
Yeah,
Sorry. Can you repeat that?
I got to ruffle some feathers.
Yeah.
But yeah, for me, it's, even in the previous question, same sort of things, right? It's just those sort of things that, regardless of whether they're an elite athlete or they're, in the developmental phases of their coaching, that are realistic and want to learn and ask questions and communicate openly. I don't think as a coach you can ask for anything more than that. Have good effort, have good attitude, as my jumper says.
Is that your motto now? Or?
It is now, yeah.
I love it. Attitude and effort. That actually is very good.
Things you can control, right? Yeah. You can't control anything else outside of that. So as long as they come in with good attitude, good effort, willing to learn, ask questions, I think in my book that makes a perfect client for me.
Yeah.
Would that be similar for you?
Yes, that's pretty much everything was perfect. I was like, yeah. Besides, obviously, I know you just ruffled some feathers with the with the bodybuilder show. I was like, wait, what? I was like, because I'm like, even if you win one, there's too many variables. Like, especially competing. Like, I mean, like you said, like it could literally be a case of you win a show when no one else was there, and it's like, did you win because you were the best on the day? Like, it's too many things, too many variables. Absolutely. That does not determine a grade.
Yeah. But yeah, I look at those things. I think that for me personally, they make those attitudes and those efforts are what make a good client.
Yeah, I love that. I think it was pretty much exactly what any client who wants to be better should listen to, and any coach should be focusing on helping clients get to that level. Like, obviously, as you said, like it requires us to help them make those achievable goals and be honest with them. Like if they want to be IFBB Pro League men's physique, it's a completely different standard to ICN men's physique, and it's kind of like, well, you need to put on like 10 more extra kilos because these guys are getting unrealistic big. If you see on the American level, I was looking at some guys out there, I was kind of like, big. Man, these guys are huge.
Yeah, right. So
yeah,
it is what it is, right? That's, realistic expectations are really important. So, and if there's someone listening to this that ticks all those boxes, then flick us a message.
Yes. And it's like, we would love to coach you. Yeah, it's exactly where this should be. Right? Yeah. And I think as well as like, it's very interesting. Sorry, I just lost my train of thought there. Just thinking about deep in thought, started thinking about it, enjoying listening to what you have to say. I think that's what I do.
Glad somebody does.
Yes. Sweet. Okay, so I chucked in an extra question. I think I did bring it up with you a little bit. You did make a post yesterday about this. Progressive overload and periodization. What are your thoughts?
What are my thoughts?
What are your thoughts of it? And
progressive overload is pretty important if you want to grow muscle or you want to improve.
Yeah, 100%.
Any type of athletic performance, for sure. Periodization, I think. Periodization. Who are we talking in terms of like development? I kind of look at, and I follow the Angus Bradley school of thought on this. So shout out Angus. Um, but making the perfect microcycle, so trying to create the most perfect week of a program, because I think they're going to have a lot of other lifestyle factors that could potentially, change the programs around a little bit. So I would focus more on, not necessarily going, we're going to do 5 reps this week, 3 reps, then we're going to try to max out, or pre-plan deloads, or, this is going to be our heaviest week, because I think, they may be stressed at work. They may have relationship problems. They may have, any issues outside of the gym that are much, much more important to them than the gym is, right? So you might make the perfect macrocycle plan for 6 weeks, but it may not actually translate how you want it to translate, because there's going to be things outside of your control that you can't really control. So I tend to put a little bit more focus on creating the perfect microcycle, so like weekly program, and then sort of making adjustments and using a reps in reserve or an RPE sort of scale to progress it each week. And just sort of have a look at how they're feeling on the week, whether we go, all right, we're going to push this a little bit, or okay, we're going to pull this back. Because, we could get to a week where we're like, we want to completely send it this week, but they're having a relationship problem with their partner.
They fall sick.
Yeah, they're stressed, or they're work is bad or something like that. And it's probably not the best time to do that, right? So, so for general population, I don't generally look too far in advance for periodization. That might be an unpopular opinion, but it's been effective for my coaching. I think if we're looking in the context of like a performance athlete whose lifestyle revolves around training, it's probably a little bit more of a necessity. I think, to get somebody from, 100% good to 105% good, we may want to look at periodization for that, because we expect that their lifestyle is going to revolve around their training. So, I would be more inclined to use it for those sort of people. So I think it's just kind of different context for people in terms of periodization. But progressive overload, I think, comes in many forms. I don't think, it's not just more weight on the bar. In the developmental stages for coaching, progressive overload is going to be movement patterns. It's going to be, it can be like their enjoyment of coming to the gym, right?
Yeah.
Like if they've gone from hating an exercise to enjoying it, I'm going to count that as a form of overload for me in the developmental stage, right? So again, I always look at improving, and if it's weight or it's reps or sets or fucking enjoyment going into the gym or things like that, like you need to be, if you're measuring those things, like it's a pretty good indicator that they're progressing. And then on the other side, obviously with performance athletes, progressive overload's pretty important. Again, same sort of thing, not just weight, could be skill, technique, recovery, any of those sort of things that we look at. And I think that if you're not measuring things, you can't really manage it. So I do look at progressive overload for anybody is going to be pretty vital, because that's how they get better. Yeah, that's how we can measure it, manage it, and be able to as well show them, and sort of say, hey, look, your sleep score was 70 for the last 6 weeks, and now it's up to 80 in 3 weeks, because that's an overload right there. It could be weight for powerlifting. It could be mechanical tension for bodybuilding. It could be vertical jump for a sports person, anything like that. So it is definitely something it's really important.
Wow, that was a very thought out answer. I really enjoyed that one.
That was off the top of the head, so I'm glad.
That was actually really good. The way you broke it down into the developmental stage for progressive overload and performance stage for progressive overload looks different, and it's about that enjoyment factor when you're in developmental stage. It's like, for your Gen Pop clients, it's kind of like we look at the microcycle, which is the shorter term, because, you're looking at how do we get someone more consistent in this? Like, how do they also know how to manage their sleep, their stress, and other factors? Whereas obviously you got someone who potentially could be a higher level athlete, like a performance athlete, who already kind of revolves their training around it. So for them, they need that training. So you kind of like, well, now we need to look at how do we make this better for you, like in the macro cycle. That was very well said. Like it's crazy because when you said it, I think a lot of people who maybe listen to this might not fully understand it, but there's so much detail that you just said into that whole breakdown. I understood every single word of it, but I was kind of like, it kind of once again gathered my thoughts of what I'm doing even. And I was like, oh, wow, that makes a lot of sense. Like you broke it down and you didn't make an online coaching course or something like that. You know what I'm saying?
Maybe one day.
Maybe one day. I would definitely be the first person to sign up. All right.
Well, there we go. All right.
Yeah.
We're on then.
You got to do it now. So, because I just really enjoyed that answer because I feel like it gathers everything we're already doing into like this sort of sections to really understand it. And then that way you can tell other people this is what you should be looking at, you know, instead of looking at the macro cycle or working on trying to perfect the macro cycle when someone is just starting out. It's just kind of like, we should focus on a week to week basis, right? Yeah.
Yeah. And look, I again, with the general population, like I don't, we're trying to train to complement their life. Right.
Yes.
So when we look at the variables, like we can't expect to create a program for 8 weeks that gets harder and harder every single week, like 8 weeks out, so that we go, oh, this is where you're going to be in 8 weeks time, when they could get called away for work in 4 weeks. They could get, they could have hopefully not, but there could be a relationship issue. There could be a job issue, and we don't expect general population people to drop their lifestyle for their training, right? So we have to, I just don't plan too far out. I'll still always try to progress everything. So we still always try to get progressive overload, but I'm just not trying to be like, oh, we're going to be here in 8 weeks or we're going to be here in 6 weeks, because you just don't know what's going to happen and you have to take a back seat. I think Angus said it at the seminar he was over in Perth. He said the real head coach is, their boss or their partner, or
yes, he did say that.
They got more control over the training than we do, right?
Yeah,
which I thought was a really, really cool analogy of putting it. But then when we look at like the professional or performance athletes, we're looking at, I'll use for example like some of the basketball players that we'll train, right? They get paid to play, like it's their job. So if stuff doesn't go right in their life, they still have to do their job, right? So you probably can look at periodization a little bit more closer for them, because things are there's going to be less variables, and there still might be some variables. Everything is unpredictable, but you have more variability with them than you are going to have with the general population person. So again, periodization, unless they're, an athlete where they're paid to do it. I don't even periodize for a lot of the bodybuilders outside of knowing when we're going to start a prep and how long an off season goes for, as a rough gauge. And then just maybe closer to it, monitor it. But, outside of that, I'm not planning 2 years of training for these people. I'm not planning, I'm not planning 6 months of training for these people, because I don't know where it's going to end up. And I sort of measure it after 3 or 4 weeks and then take it in whichever direction that I think it should go after that. But then, sports, basketball, it's a little bit different because you got the season, then you may have finals, and then an off season, which are all structured and built in. So you can maybe periodize it a little bit more. But yeah, for general population, man, I've very rarely done more than 2 weeks of periodization ever in my life. And 9 times out of 10, the periodization changes when they go, I'm sick of this exercise, it's boring me. All right, fuck, I'll find a different variation of it for you. And it could be, something like that. So, so that would be my easiest way to break it down, would be the difference between developmental coaching and performance coaching. And developmental, I don't bother with it. Performance coaching, a little bit more, but still not crazy. Like I'm not doing a year and a half of training in advance where I know what we're doing in 7 months' time on a Wednesday. Like, I'm never going to do that stuff.
I love it. Well articulated answer.
Just double that answer. Sorry about
that. Yes, very, very good answer. Hopefully, people will go back and listen to this. They'll learn a lot from it. All right, so here we got 12-week challenges, a waste of time.
All right, 5 years ago, if you asked me about a 5-week challenge, or a 12-week challenge,
the old Richard,
oh man, I would have said they are horrible. They're unrealistic. people drop and they go really aggressive in their diet and super crazy in their training. They're not sustainable, and people
it's almost like The Biggest Loser.
they lose their weight and they bring it back. 5 years ago, that would have been my only answer to it. As I, believe it or not, have matured, this is also something I put in the gray area, because I think the ones that do that, where they say, here's a 12-week challenge, you're going to be on 1,200 calories, you're going to do 6 group workouts a week, we're going to measure you week 1, week 3, week 6, 9, and 12, and then afterwards, that's what we've done, right? I got 2 thought processes on this now. My first one, on one side, is it's not sustainable. So they're probably, to an uneducated person, you're trying to do performance to a developmental athlete. It's not going to be sustainable. They probably won't keep the results. On the other side, that might be the only thing that gets them motivated to get into the gym. And to me, anything to get them into the gym is good. Like we said on that last podcast, we build bridges, not barriers.
Yep.
So if they're motivated by doing a group challenge with their friends, great. If it gets them in the gym, fantastic. I think there's good ways to do it and there's bad ways to do it. I think the ways that are good are, we've got 12 weeks. I'm going to try to educate them on the developmental side of training, nutrition, lifestyle, all these things, teach them the basics of training so that when they finish the 12 weeks, hopefully they've lost some weight and they have a better understanding and they're more confident to go in the gym. And that could potentially let them go for a lifetime of enjoying going to the gym, which could, down the track lead to less chance of, type 2 diabetes, any type of, cancers, anything like that, right? Just general health improvements. So I can't knock them because I think they do a lot of good for a lot of people when they're done right. But I still will knock the ones where it's like, we're trying to do this to get as many transformation photos as I can. Let's just drop the calories, kill them. And then once they're done with this. We'll see you later. So 5 years ago, I would have said it would have been the latter. Just like, they're horrible. That's what they do to people. But I also don't think everybody that runs a 12-week challenge is like that. So I think, for the person that really enjoys it and gets them into the gym and they learn and then they get excited and maybe they continue going to the gym afterwards, then they're phenomenal. So 2 sides to the coin.
No, I love that. It's because I run 12-week challenges, and I wanted to defend the point a little bit because I think a lot of people think my 12-week challenge. No, I didn't want to. I knew you agree to some extent exactly what I was saying. Like, I think a lot of people look at it as like, I'm doing it just to get people in transformations. I literally do not do that. Me and my coaches do not do that. I guarantee that. Like, we go into this like any normal journey, it's just a set point for them. We tell them we're just going to help you if they're in the developmental stage, because now you actually put terms to it. It actually makes sense. It's like we're teaching them just the fundamentals. We're not crash dieting these people. We're not giving them a shit ton of cardio, what people think we do, because we do not do that. We literally take the slow approach and we're like, we're just going to try our best. And this is just a set point to kind of get that, if you're on the fence thinking about it, might as well just try it. And then we approach it the exact same way as what we do for normal lifestyle people, like anything in general. And then, I got clients that will literally do both challenges because they just, one at a year and they're still going for the next one even. Because it's just something that's just there and it's something to get back from it. That's literally why we run those. And it's just to get people over that fence to give it a shot for themselves. And like you said, just get into the gym. Like, it's like, well, I might as well just give this a shot. It might be a bit hard to change some of my lifestyle stuff, but we try to make sure it fits into the lifestyle as much as we can. And, it's not a crash diet kind of situation like The Biggest Loser and be like, lose a ton of weight as much as you want, And if there's someone like that, we try to teach them, look, you can't, this is not sustainable. We tell them that. We're like, this is not sustainable to lose like 20 kilos in 12 weeks. If you do, it's not, you have to understand that we have to do everything right after that, like we got to get them in the right mindset and frame.
Absolutely. And I think, that when they're done well, they're fantastic.
Yeah.
Right. So, but again, I can look at some personal training and say, regardless of whether they call it a challenge or they don't call it a challenge, you can say that there's people that don't do challenges, but they still train people in an unrealistic way because they're just trying to get them to, starve them and overtrain them so that, and, and it's not a challenge, it's just how people coach. So I think it's like, it's unfair to like completely shit on challenges when there's some people that do them so amazing, and then there's other people that don't. But I think that's the same as everything in this industry, right?
Two sides of the coin, gray area.
Regardless of whatever it is, right? So I can't just shit on that. But like, what you're saying there is, helping somebody get into the gym, maybe with a group of people that are also in that same situation, so that they're more comfortable and they can learn, and then maybe feel more confident to go do training with a trainer or go by themselves. Then fuck, that's amazing. So I think it's again, it's context dependent, but 5 years ago I would have just absolutely shot him. But now
I used to watch Biggest Loser.
When you watch that, I mean, that's but again, right? Like, are any of those TV shows, like I always use this analogy when people talk about the Biggest Loser, and it's like, go watch like any of the dating shows.
Yeah.
Is that how dating works? No. Go watch any of those reality shows, like the Master Chefs and stuff. Like, that's not how that shit works. Like, it's just entertainment. So it's the same sort of thing. And it's, when you explain it to clients, it's the same sort of thing. It's like, you guys know what it's like watching, one of the dating shows, and you sit there and say, that's crazy. We're saying the same shit about the Biggest Loser.
Yeah.
It's not sustainable and all that sort of thing. So yeah, again, I think it just comes down to how you do it. What you try to get out of it. And I think if you do it for the right reasons and you try to teach the right things, then they can be amazing.
Yeah. Love it. Thank you for that good answer. The two sides, stay in the gray area, guys. That's the number one rule.
Yeah.
So what do you think? So social media has a lot of, now I'm seeing a lot of videos out there that will talk about like, this is my number one chest exercise. This is the number one bicep exercise. Maybe. So you see a lot of those videos, right? Surely.
I try not to, but I do. Yeah.
You end up seeing it. What do you think about those? What do you?
I mean, for who, right?
Yeah.
Like, you can't number. Everybody's different, right? Like, so my thing with like optimal exercises, like the number one exercise is, that's going to be different on every person, right? So there's things like your genetic structure are going to change what feels better and what feels worse. Your buy-in to the exercise, like, you could pick hip thrust that could be an amazing exercise for glutes, but if you don't fucking like doing it because it's an absolute pain in the ass trying to set it up, then maybe it's not the most optimal exercise for that person. But if they love barbell squatting and they're going to push themselves to intensities that are going to, be close to failure, they're probably going to get more benefits from a hypertrophy point of view from that than they will on hip thrusts. For somebody else, it could be the polar opposite. So I don't know. I try not to watch those too much, just for those reasons, because I think it looks different on every single person. And I think, you get those things that are like, here's 3 glute exercises that you can try. And 95% of the time, the exercise not even performed properly in the video where they're trying to teach it. And then, can it be good for maybe somebody that's bored at the gym and they want to do more exercises? Yes. They might give them more ideas, and they might pick one of them and love it. And, that keeps them motivated to be in the gym. So fantastic. But, I think labeling things black and white is never a good idea. Like, for me, I would rather put up a video of exercises that would, maybe caption and be like, hey, if you want, here's an exercise that you might like to try to add into your workout routine. Like, I'm not going to sit here and say it's the best exercise. And it might be terrible for some people, but give it a shot. If you like it, do it. If you don't, fucking throw it in the bin. You know what I mean? And
but can you learn to like it?
Yeah, I mean, the more you practice something, the better you get at it, right?
Exactly.
So, yeah, but I mean, but again, then we're going down that rabbit hole of like, what are we trying to achieve? Because it's like, for a beginner, do they need anything super complex? Probably not. So are we just going to pick the exercises that they enjoy doing because it keeps them motivated to continue to the gym? Might be a good way to go. because we could end up trying to teach one exercise. It takes 3 weeks to perfect. And in that 3 weeks, they lose motivation to the gym.
Yeah.
This doesn't sound very optimal to me. Right. So
Yep.
again, those sort of, you know, the videos of just the black and white sort of stuff. You know, give it a shot. If you like it, maybe add it in. Like there's no one exercise that's ever going to be like, if you don't do this exercise, you're not going to get to where you want to get to. Like that shit doesn't exist.
Yes. It's like no program is number one. Yeah, like it's what you enjoy most and stick to.
Absolutely. So, and again, right, like we're looking at, if you're a power lifter, you're going to have to squat, bench, and dead. So they're going to be pretty important exercises. But when we do hypertrophy, it's stimulus dependent, not exercise dependent. So, you know, we might find what works for them. And if there's a video that comes up like that, and you want to try it, do it. But, you know, by no means is there an actual number one exercise to do. Like, you can't label these fucking things. Like, if that was the case, then everyone would just pick the top 5 of everything, and every single person would do the exact same program in the world and get amazing results. But we know that shit doesn't happen. But yeah, so I don't know. They're there. People just, you know, people got their own reasons for posting that sort of stuff. Like, you know, some people might do it they're just trying to get content out so that they can be seen. There's other people that get excited about something, so they just kind of post it up because it works really well for them, or, you know, all sorts of stuff. It's like, this is the number one fat loss food.
Oh, yes.
You know what I mean? It's like
detox tea.
Right.
You know?
So, yeah. And, you know, it could be anything like that. You don't know what it is, but yeah, there's no, you know, don't lie about it. Just maybe say here's an exercise you can try. If you like it, do it. If you don't like it, don't do it.
I think a lot of people out there, the problem with the internet is there's too much info out there. So info overload is probably the hardest thing right now. And a lot of new clients I talk to now that are just like, I'm just like, what do you struggle with most? And they're like, I don't know what I need to do for myself. And I'm just like, yeah, there's too much information. Social media has done that now. There's too many, this is what you should be doing, my 10 fat loss tips, or you should try intermittent fasting, or, you know, all this different diet and stuff.
Have you ever tried that?
Once upon a time, I tried it. Yeah, I tried it. I tried it because I was going through, my lifestyle was a bit busy at the time.
Right.
So I was working like 4 a.m. in the morning PT to about 10 a.m. and I just rather work back to back. So I kind of held from eating, if that makes sense. So it wasn't like, oh yeah, this is going to be optimal. Yeah. Like, I just kind of just decided to do it because my lifestyle at the time suited it. I was like, you know, I'll give it a shot.
That shit worked for me, bro.
Oh, really?
Not for any other reason than it just, again, fitted my lifestyle, because I'm not great in the mornings. So I wake up at like as late as humanly fucking possible, so I'm not late for work.
Yeah.
And so I just didn't eat, and then I went to work, and then I'd start eating at like 11 after clients, and I'm like,
that sounds exactly what you did.
And I'm like, fuck, I'm intermittent fasting.
Yeah, and you like kind of stayed lean,
and I'm getting lean, yes. Right? So yeah.
Oh wait, don't listen to us now because everyone's going to listen. But I should try it.
There's nothing magic about it. It's just a way to control calories. But
yeah, that's it.
But yeah, it is. It's.
I think it's important. Yeah, that sort of factor. It's just like we just applied it because that's just our lifestyle. And I think there's a lot of strategies out there just depending on your lifestyle. Like if that suited you and you wake up and you feel tired trying to eat a meal, then maybe you should eat a meal. Maybe you should eat later on. And that's when you implement the right strategies. And I think that's where we come in as coaches to kind of find something that suits their lifestyle. And that's the important part. Like, you know, you get 5-4 workers that work 12-hour shifts. Sometimes they won't have time to eat 4 meals, like go sit down and have a meal. Like they might be on the go, like, you know, they only probably can get in 1 meal and a protein shake and that's it. Yeah. And then we have to find something that be like, okay, what can we do to make this work for you, you know?
Absolutely, 100%. Yeah. And I think it's funny you were talking about the information thing, right? There's a guy, John Goodman, who's in my
yes, Jonathan Goodman, yes.
That's my guy. You know, and in his book, Ignite the Fire, and he says that, you know, the competitive advantage now is not information; it's what you do with the information. Because, you know, we're in the information era right now, so it's so easy to get information, and it's like, you know, what makes you successful when you're coaching is your ability to use that information to the clients. Like there's nothing out there, and I always say this to people, is actually I have an Instagram post this week coming about this, and it's like, I don't have any magic secret thing when I coach. Like I coach as so simple and boring. Like when I do everything right, and it's like I can tell you everything that I do, but what happens is like it's the way you approach the person that is where the results come from, right? It's like, how do you apply this basic information to this person? You know, when we look at like two different people we're trying to get the same result from, their programs and diets are going to look completely different, but they're all the same basic principles that we're using, but it's, you know, what we're doing with this information that is what, and in the approach to the client is what makes you actually successful. So it is, you know, interesting how you said that as well about there's so much information out there, because it's like it's fucking overload. Like it's absolutely crazy. So one of the best
proper overloaded.
Yeah. So it's like one of the best things you can do is literally just like a bad program performed well is always going to be better than a good program performed poorly. Yeah. So like sometimes it's like, all right, find what works for you, do it. Yeah. And just block out all the other noise. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
You'll probably get pretty good results.
Yeah.
Pretty straightforward. But yeah.
No, really, just randomly threw that in there. Yeah. So yeah, I think that is pretty much all the questions. We'll probably have to save that other one for a different time. I think we're gonna have to think about that a little bit more. Yeah, are you ready to tackle that question?
That's gonna. I don't know. I mean, we can, but it's gonna be a shambled answer, or we can sit down because I have to go on record here and say this: that I've done a few podcasts. This might be the first question that I've spent about a week thinking about. Like,
I think we have to do it.
You can ask Jazzy. Like, I was aggressive with this question. I might have even like wrote stuff down, and I was like, I don't know how to answer this question.
Okay.
So we can do it now, or we can leave it as a part 2 and we can release it later. I'm good with either one of those. You'll probably get.
No, I think because you put a lot of effort into this, I feel like we're gonna have to do it. I have to finish it off with this last question. All right,
let's get into this.
So this is the question that we've all been waiting for. Richard is gonna rebut a lot of what he says. So
I'm going to argue with myself.
He's going to argue with himself. So this is just going to be Richard talking for the next 20 minutes. Hope you guys enjoyed this. So here we go.
It'll be quick.
Comp season just passed, and I realized how little a coach does. Would you agree?
All right. I need to be like 4 different people when I'm talking.
Okay, so here we go. So here's his 4 different personas.
So I think one of the good things about being able to answer this question now is everything we've spoken about so far, and I can kind of relay it back. So I've thought about this question in a few different scenarios, and I don't have an answer. But here's my thought processes. We'll go into my mind, which is a crazy place, but we'll try to navigate it a little bit. So just walk with me on this. In terms of bodybuilding preparation, I think performance athletes, I think everybody that does bodybuilding should be a performance athlete.
Yeah.
I think that should revolve around their lifestyle. I think, nobody should consider doing a bodybuilding show until they have all the developmental stuff done, first of all. Do they help? I think they definitely help. It would be crazy to say they don't help. I think at different levels, for in different degrees for different people. I think when you have somebody that knows their body and is a very seasoned competitor, I don't like to say I coach them. I like to say I collaborate with them, because they're going to know just as much. Like that old phrase, it's like I might be an expert on the body, but they're an expert on their lives, right? So I understand training principles. They understand their lives. So we need to collaborate, because they're going to know their body better than I am. They have experience. They know what works. They know what doesn't work. And sometimes it's just about kind of guiding. So again, I think it may be you're there for assurance and you're there for special comments, I guess is the way you could put it. Like you're there to help. So I don't think, could they do it without you? Potentially. Would it be as efficient? Probably not. So are you helping in that capacity? Yes. Are you helping a lot? Well, I like to think so. But I also think at the same time, if they did the basics that they knew how to do, they could probably get quite a good result too. So if you look at it in that regard, you might say the athlete does, you know, pretty much all of it. However, if you're looking at somebody that you've taken from day one and you've developed them and you've helped their lifestyle, their mindset, everything like that, they get to be a performance athlete. And then you're acting how I just said, you have a shitload done for them, right? Because there's no way in hell that they would get to the stage without you doing everything from day one. So I would say and argue and say, yes, the coach does a shitload. So again, like, I think there's that side of it, but then there's also, this is where I'm going to start arguing with myself, is there's a lot of people that know what to do. Like, there's coaches that get coaches that, you know, coach bodybuilding and they know what to do, but they need assurance, right? They may second guess themselves. They need somebody there to help them out in that regard. And I would look at that and say, yes, we are helping quite a lot, because, you know, we may stop them making a bad decision, or we may keep them in a more positive mindset, which could help them train. But essentially they know exactly with what they're doing. We're just being a set of eyes. So can you call that helping a lot, or is that just helping a little bit? I'm not sure. Yeah. But I do think, as a coach, and this is something that I have been really big on the last couple of years, is we're conductors. So if you look at a conductor in a musical, our back is to the audience. So the athlete is, you know, the audience is there watching them. So I'm not going to take a lot of credit for it. And I think good athletes make coaches look good. So answer that question with what I said, when however you want to answer it. I'm not sure. That's just my opinion on it. I still can't give you an answer for that, but that's kind of like my brainstorming of that answer. But again, I think it might be context dependent. I might just be fucking crazy and overthinking it. But I like to think I help. So that makes me feel nice.
No, I think that was like, after hearing it again, no, it definitely sounds like, you know, I guess I took it out of context in regards to, like, maybe it's just dependent on how grateful the client might be at the end of everything.
Yeah.
Like, you know, it could be, as you just said, it's not really on us. If it's just like someone who's already a coach and they already know what they're doing, they just need someone else just to give them a bit of insurance and guide them a little bit more, then they might be like, you've helped me a lot. Because, like, you know, they could have, like, I would have second guessed myself. I would have had all this extra stress. And you may have just said, oh yeah, just do this. Like, you just go one route. Yeah. Like, very simple answer. It may not seem like a lot to a lot of people, but then they're like, I'm super grateful for what you've done. So maybe the answer might be along the lines of how grateful the client is to us, the coaches.
And again, that adds a whole new element to it, right?
Yeah.
Like, you know, because now you're going to send me down the rabbit hole. Right? And it's like,
but what if you do so much and the client isn't good?
You know, and I'm going to talk out of experience here. I've had people that they've been fucking incredible. The best they've ever looked. Everything went well, right? And they came into a really hard lineup, harder than they've ever had. And they maybe placed one position or two positions lower than what they did in the previous show in a very weak lineup. However, they look much, much better, right? And an athlete would say it was the coach's fault, right? And you know, this is not a singular case. This happened. Every single person that's been prepping people for a while will have had this, and it's, you know, it is what it is. And then, you know, you may feel like you've helped and somebody else may think like you haven't. You know what I mean? So, like, there's so many ways you can look at that question, and I could probably never find the right answer. I don't think. Trust me, I fucking tried all week.
And you asked a lot of us.
Yeah.
So, like, how do I answer this?
So, yeah, I mean, that would be my brainstormed thoughts on that question. And I would be interested to hear people's reactions on what they thought about that.
Yeah, this is something I'm gonna have to clip and ask what do people actually think about this question.
Yeah. So again, right? Like I think, I don't know. I don't know. It's probably up to the client to answer that question.
Yeah.
But it's a good question. It's like probably one of the best questions I've had.
As we talk about it more, I start to realize how messed up that question is.
It's good though, because it opens up pathways to talk about, right? So I think, it is a good question because it opens up for conversation in multiple different directions, which is, what a good question does. So, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how to, now that we talk about it more and you keep bringing it up, now I'm like questioning it myself and I'm like, I don't know the answer as well.
I can message you in like 2 weeks with like a perfect answer.
Do you reckon you can? I don't think so. Like, I'm going to have to listen to this podcast again and listen and be like, yeah, there's no answer to this. But it's, as we said, it's just the experience. And it's like, but then is it our job to make them prepare themselves mindset wise to kind of, know what the realistic goals are? It's like, it's not like we can control, like you're guaranteed better than what you are, but you stood up against a tough lineup. So we can't control that. So we taught them that well enough beforehand. Maybe they'll be like more like, oh yeah, you definitely improved me kind of thing. Or you could put a lot of effort into someone and then they're just like, you helped them from developmental stage to the performance stage. You got them there. You did like, you spent like 2 years growing them and then they could just turn around and be like, nah, you didn't help me. And then, and it's just, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Interesting.
So again, right, we have to just take away from this and just, focus on controlling what you can control.
Well, yeah, exactly.
And
as coaches, we have to do that.
Those are your KPIs and improve those and try to forget about the rest. And as long as those KPIs of controlling controllable factors is met, then, you can statistically measure what you've done. But yeah, it's the best answer I got for you, man.
Thank you. I do enjoy that. Thank you again for taking your time out today to come and do this podcast with us. We're going to definitely have to do a third one coming soon. Definitely we'll think of some more fun questions. I'll try to find similar questions to this and just go into a rabbit hole of discussion. But yeah, so when can the listeners find you?
So I'll have my Instagram, which is Richard_physique code. That's my personal Instagram, which I put a lot of content on there for both body composition and both sports performance. And then we have our business page at Physique Code, which is, all of our clients and what's happening on the gym and things like that. So either one of those two, you can find us and come through, have a follow and check it out.
Sweet. So once again, if you do have any questions or anything you want to ask Richard, or even give him if there is an answer to the question we just last talked about, that would be great. We will both love to hear it. But if you found some value from this podcast, please share it with your friends and family and make sure to tag us in your stories. And if you do have questions for us, we will be more than happy to do another podcast where we can answer those questions as well. But once again, thank you for tuning in and we'll see you guys next time.